All right, morning after the Lions game, and yeah, this one hurts. If you were hoping that last week's win over Kansas City was proof the Cowboys had turned a corner, this loss reminded us why patience turned to worry. The message here is simple. The offense can still pile up yards and points, but the defense and the little things are the same problems we've been pointing at all season. When you watch the replay later, it's going to sting more than it did live. You'll see linebackers taking bad angles, guys out of position on routine tackles, and a cornerback room that didn't look like a group built to handle speed and separation. Those aren't new revelations, they're confirmations. We've seen them in flashes this year, and again, they showed up when it mattered. That's the part that makes you grit your teeth. Now, I'm not going to bury the offense here. Dak still moved the chains and we put up yards. The stat sheet looks decent. But there was a lot left on the table. Drops, penalties, a holding call that wiped out a promising drive, and 2 turnovers that flipped momentum. There was also that series where ceedee should have had the touchdown and the play didn't go our way. And then there's George Pickens. One off game doesn't make a trend, but it raised eyebrows. You and I both saw moments where routes looked casual, where a ball bounced off his foot instead of into his hands. It's fair to ask questions, and it's fair to watch the next few games to see if it's a blip or something more. Special teams were rough too. That fair catch confusion and kickoff coverage giving the Lions great starting field position. When your defense is already shaky, you can't gift opponents the ball at midfield and expect to survive. This game felt like everything compounded. Defensive lapses, special teams mistakes, and offensive chances wasted. If you're watching film with me later, keep an eye on how the Lions attacked our angles and how often we missed tackles in space. That's where the score ballooned. Quick question for you right now. Do you trust this defense to show up down the stretch? Yes or no? Drop your answer in the comments. I want to see where the fan base stands. And one favor, if you're new here, hit subscribe. We're pushing to 17,000 subscribers, and I need you on board to keep these breakdowns coming. If you want more, say so below. And when you're ready, I'll dive into the defensive film next. The problems there need a close look. Reply with, "See when you want me to continue to Chapter 2 and we'll get into the defensive breakdown." As I promised, let's dig into the defense, because this loss wasn't about one blown call or a lucky play. It was a series of defensive problems replaying like a checklist of the same issues we've seen all season. First thing you'll notice on film, Kenneth Murray kept getting himself out of position. When your linebackers taking poor angles or getting washed out of run fits, it creates seams that speedier offenses will happily exploit. And the Lions did exactly that. That's not just one missed play. That's a recurring habit that forces others to overcompensate and opens lanes in space where missed tackles become scoring plays. Speaking of missed tackles, there were too many of them in open field situations. Guys who look fine in close quarters but struggle when forced to cover ground laterally. Against a team that attacks the flats and forces one-on-one coverages, those missed angles get magnified. Now let's talk about the cornerback room. The live broadcast impression was accurate. It felt like none of the options on the field looked fully game-ready for the Lions' speed crew. You can forgive inexperience here and there, but when multiple corners are out of position or not anticipating route concepts, quarterbacks find windows. That's compounded when your nickel and backup packages have to be plugged into starting roles because of injuries. The transcript mentioned ready, street, claimed late and thrust into larger roles. And that kind of roster construction shows up on tape. You can't rely on waiver wire depth to consistently handle quick, polished route runners without breakdowns. Scheme and play calling are the other side of this coin. Matt Eberflus' plan worked intermittently earlier this season, but in this game the staff left an obvious leverage point unaddressed. Jared Goff tends to struggle when pressured, and the Lions' offensive line was compromised by injuries. That screams opportunity to dial up pressure and force communication errors on the line. Instead, the Cowboys didn't blitz enough to create chaos, and when you don't, you give a veteran like Goff time to find the soft spots. It's not just about adding a rusher, it's about forcing blocking calls and mismatches. The defense seemed reactive rather than proactive, waiting to be beaten rather than dictating the chess match. Special teams also fed the defense toxic field position, invalid fair catch penalties and kickoff coverage that repeatedly started opponents near midfield put the defense in immediate disadvantage. When your unit is already shaky, gifting the other team the ball in plus territory is how a close game turns into a blowout. That's fundamentals and situational discipline. Two things you can coach, but they need consistent emphasis. So where does that leave us? On film, the pattern is obvious. Poor tackling technique, linebackers missing reads, corners out of position, conservative pass rush decisions, and special teams breakdowns. Those are fixable in theory, but they require consistent practice, smarter schematic adjustments, and maybe personnel upgrades depending on what the front office decides in March. Quick poll for you. In the comments, tell me which area you think needs urgent attention. Linebackers, cornerbacks, pass rush, or special teams. And one ask, if you haven't already, hit subscribe. We're pushing to 17,000 subscribers, and your support helps these deep breakdowns keep coming. Alright, let's get into Chapter 3. Because if Chapter 2 was about what went wrong on defense, this chapter is about why it keeps happening. And a lot of it points straight to coaching, preparation, and the decisions being made on the sideline. Here's the truth that showed up on the film. The Cowboys didn't come in with a plan designed to attack Detroit's weaknesses. Jared Goff is a completely different quarterback when he's pressured versus when he's kept clean. And not only that, the Lions came into this game with a banged-up offensive line. That should have been a chance for Dallas to get aggressive, force miscommunications, and make Goff uncomfortable early. Instead, the Cowboys played conservative, sat back, and essentially invited Detroit to run their script. That's coaching. When you watch the replay, look at how often Goff gets to his second read without any real urgency. That's not winning football in December. That's playing to survive instead of playing to dictate. And look, I get the philosophy. Matt Eberflus likes structure, discipline, and minimizing explosives. But sometimes, especially against a well-coached offense like Detroit's, you can't wait for mistakes. You have to cause them. And that brings us to adjustments, or the lack of them. Once it became obvious that Detroit was attacking the edges, forcing linebackers sideways, and winning with leverage, you would expect the Cowboys to tighten run, fits, rotate safety help differently, or change alignments to slow down those angles. But that didn't happen until late, and by then the Lions had rhythm, confidence, and points. Great teams adjust early. Good teams adjust at halftime. Struggling teams adjust when the scoreboard starts screaming. Special teams also fall under coaching, and this week they cost Dallas real field position. The invalid fair catch? That's discipline. The kickoff coverage leaving massive lanes? That's attention to detail. When your defense is already having problems, special teams can't be the gasoline on the fire. Now, none of this means the coaching staff is bad. It means they were out-prepared. And that's a problem this time of year. Because if you're not winning the sideline matchup in late December, you're not winning playoff games in January. This team has enough talent to compete, but the scheme has to evolve past bend but don't break. Right now, it's bending, breaking, and giving quarterbacks, like Goff, way too much comfort. So let me ask you, who deserves more blame after this one? Type in the comments, coach or roster. And before we roll into the next chapter, do me a favor. Hit subscribe if you haven't yet. We're pushing hard to reach 17,000, and every new subscriber helps keep these deep dive breakdowns coming. All right, let's talk offense, because this was one of those weird games where the box score looks like progress, but the tape shows missed chances. Dak moved the ball, 417. Yards is nothing to sneeze at, and you can't ignore the big plays that still happened. But piling up yards and actually finishing drives are two different things. You know the moments I mean. Ceedee should have had that touchdown. There was a pass that bounced off Pickens' foot late, and that holding call wiped out a drive that could have changed momentum. Turnovers killed us at key times. Those self-inflicted wounds are the kinds of things that turn a winnable game into a loss, even when the offense, technically, showed up. Now, about George Pickens. I get why fans are twitchy. He's been sensational most of the season, but yesterday looked off. Routes that usually have urgency felt a little casual at times, and there were sequences where you expected him to extend or fight for the ball, and he didn't. Before we overreact, remember the sample size. One game doesn't erase everything we've seen from him when the lights are on. Still, when your season is teetering, every eyeball and every play gets magnified. The smart move for the Cowboys is to watch the next few weeks closely and let the film, not hot takes, dictate contract decisions. If it repeats, you talk long-term risk management. If it's a one-off, you reward the production. Quick interactive question for you. If the team had to choose now, would you rather they franchise tag Pickens for 1 year or lock him into a long-term deal? Type tag or long-term in the comments. I want to see where fans land. Dak's pocket presence and timing still give you hope. The offense can create chunk plays, and the play-action stuff to get the defense hesitant has worked at times this year. But too often we leaned on max protect deep shots, and then didn't punish a team for taking that away. That's partly game planning and partly execution. When you're trying to protect your quarterback with max protect, small mistakes, a running back not releasing, a tight end not finding space, matter even more. The Cowboys left points on the field, and that's on execution and situational football fundamentals. Special teams and penalties played a role in offensive rhythm too. Short fields for Detroit and confusing fair catch moments shoved us into tighter drives where mistakes are more costly. Bottom line, the offense can win you games, but only if it cleans up turnovers, finishes drives, and avoids those mental errors that flip possession. If you like this kind of breakdown, do me a favor. Smash the like button and subscribe. We're pushing hard to hit 17,000 subscribers, and your support helps us get these deep dives out faster. All right, friend, deep breath. Let's wrap this up the right way, because this chapter is where everything comes together. Not just what happened against Detroit, but what it means for the Cowboys' path moving forward. First, let's address the obvious. This loss hurts. Not because the Cowboys can't recover, they absolutely can, but because it came at a point in the season where every inch matters. You don't get style points anymore. You don't get moral victories. You get wins, or you lose ground. And right now, Dallas doesn't have much ground left to give. Here's the good news. The NFC isn't running away from the Cowboys. The wild card race is messy, and that's exactly what you want when you're trying to climb back in. But here's the flip side. Messy races reward teams that stop making the same mistakes. You can't keep giving away possessions. You can't keep spotting opponents' great field position. You can't keep losing your best players to communication breakdowns, effort questions, or mental lapses. And let's be real. This game showed every flaw that needs to be fixed before the calendar flips. Pass protection rules and responsibilities need to get cleaned up. The defense has to finish plays. The offense has to convert in the red zone without relying on hero ball. This team can do all of that, but talent alone won't carry them the rest of the way. Execution will. Now, George Pickens. The noise isn't going away, and the front office knows it. The Cowboys will have to evaluate what he means to the long-term identity of this offense. Is he a WR1 who had a bad day? Or is he a WR1 level talent with WR3 level consistency? Those are two different players with two very different contract outcomes. Watch the effort. Watch the body language. Watch how he responds in the next two games. Because you better believe the front office is watching too. And here's something fans don't always talk about but matters: locker room temperature. How players respond to adversity tells you whether a team is built for January. Are leaders stepping up? Are corrections being made? Are veterans holding younger players accountable? These things shape playoff teams just as much as talent. Let's talk playoff math real quick. The Cowboys are still in it. Fully in it. One winning streak changes everything. The Lions' loss makes the margin for error smaller, but not impossible. Dallas likely needs to take at least 3 of their next 4 to stay in control of their own destiny. And if they can steal one against a top team, the numbers shift dramatically in their favor. So here's the real takeaway from this game. The Cowboys don't need to panic. They need to respond. Teams that get embarrassed and bounce back, those are the teams that scare opponents in December and January. Teams that make excuses and blame bad luck, they're watching the playoffs from the couch. Which version of the Dallas Cowboys will show up? That's the question. Okay, your turn to jump in. Quick poll for you. Do you believe the Cowboys will still make the playoffs? Type yes or no in the comments. Don't overthink it. Just respond with your gut. And before you go, help the channel out. Hit like, hit subscribe, and help us push past our goal of 17,000 subscribers. You've been rocking with Cowboys News TV all season, and your support is the reason we can keep posting daily breakdowns like this one.